Welcome back, everybody. In this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you use a practice test. So first question that can come up is what practice test? You may not have a practice test. Some instructors give practice tests to their students and some don't. If they don't, that's okay. In college, there's no expectation that your teachers or instructors will give you practice tests. Usually, that's something you find in high school and below. So if you have a practice test provided by your instructor, that's okay. If not, you can make your own. There's a video here about that. You can watch that and then make your own practice test. You can Google practice tests if you're in college algebra. Google practice test college algebra. You can find them in your textbook. All math books have chapter exams and then sometimes cumulative exams in the back of the book. Of course, if you do that, then it's not going to be personalized to you and it's not going to really be personalized to your specific class. But there is that. There's plenty of possible practice tests for you to use. Okay. So probably the optimal one would be perhaps the one that the instructor gives you. The second choice, tied for first place, would be one that you make for yourself. Okay, so a couple of important ideas as you sit down to take your practice test. One of the important things you need to keep in your mind is that you want to replicate the test environment. So give yourself the amount of time that you're going to have when you take the test in class. If it's an 80-minute class session, give yourself 80 minutes. You can set a timer. Make sure that you're uninterrupted as much as you possibly can. Definitely don't do like 20 minutes of it and then go to work and come back later in the night and do the rest of it. Or do some of it, stop and have lunch, and then come back and do the rest of it. You want to really try to replicate that class session feel. So start a timer, begin working on the test. When the time runs out, stop the test. Okay. Also, only allow the resources like the calculator, notes, or book, or whatever that you're going to have when you're taking the test in class. A lot of times I talk to students and they tell me, well, when I was doing the homework at home, I knew everything and everything was just great and roses and sunshine. And then when I come to take the test, I did terrible. And so your tests are too hard. Or whatever. And it turns out that while they're studying at home, they're using their internet, they're working with a friend, they have a calculator, and they're using like internet software that does like algebra, calculus, or something. And they have all these resources and they're taking like 5 hours to do their homework. And then when they come to take the test and they don't have their book and their notes and their friend and a calculator and they only have an hour and 20 minutes to take the test, and then they don't do as well. So there's not really a surprise there. So when you go to take your test, you want to take it under the same or as close to the same circumstances as the real test will be. That way you'll know how much you truly know. So if you're not going to have notes on the test, don't look at notes when you're taking the practice test. Okay, because then that will mislead you as far as how well prepared you are. Sit at a desk in a hard chair if that's what you have in class. Okay, again, this comes down to making the experience like it is when you are in class. If you are going to take the test in class and it's a mostly quiet room, uh, and you're sitting at a desk in a hard chair, as we usually are, but you practice sitting on your couch, laying down with your cat on your lap, and you're watching TV. That's totally a different experience. So you really want to try to practice the same way as the actual test will be. Don't, again, watch TV or listen to music or play with your phone during the practice test. A lot of times people say that music helps them concentrate. Um, that's actually probably not true. Okay, so you're better off with no music playing if you can. If you must, choose instrumental music, nothing with words in it where you're going to be tempted to sing along with it. Instrumental music, or at the very least music with vocals in another language that you don't speak, will be better than singing along to your favorite song as you try to do math. Okay. You do need to practice test taking as well as practice doing math. So you study math and you practice doing math problems, but additionally you're practicing the act of test taking. And that's part of what this is about. So you really want to replicate the environment that you actually be taking the test in. Okay. Additionally, you need to make your test, your practice test, worth something. A lot of times I talk to people and they're very nervous about tests. People get math anxiety or test anxiety. And it's very easy to have this kind of self-talk train run away against you if you're thinking, okay, well, if I don't do well on this test, then I'm going to fail the class. And if I fail the class, then I'll lose my scholarship or my job. And then I'll have to drop out of college. And then this is going to happen. And then all these terrible things are going to happen based on this one math test. And it's very easy to run yourself into the ground. And so you get nervous, and it's natural to be nervous when you're taking a test. So when you're doing the practice test, you want to have the same sort of feel. Otherwise, if you write a practice test and you take it and no one is going to see the results, then you have nothing there to make you nervous about. If there's no real consequence to it, you can get tired of it and just stop doing it halfway through. So what you want to do is set up a goal for yourself. Okay, I'm going to get 70% on this test or an 80% on this test or something. And then give yourself a consequence. If I don't do this, I'm going to skip dessert for a week, or I'm going to clean all the toilets in my house, or something that you probably really don't want to do. Okay, so that way you're going to try when you do this practice test, and you're going to be a little nervous about not making it. Okay, don't make it something really terrible. Okay, but make it something okay, like skipping dessert or cleaning a part of your house that you don't want to do, or something along those lines. Okay. And then make sure that you stick to that consequence. If you fall back on it, then it's not going to be as effective next time. Remember that the point of practicing by doing math problems and practicing with test taking is not to make it so that you're not nervous anymore. It's to make it so that you can perform even if you are nervous. If you drive, if you think about how your driving test went, your behind the wheel test, you were probably nervous to an extent. And that was totally natural because you're being tested. Somebody's watching you do something, and there's a consequence to it. But you didn't practice, your student driving up until the point you're no longer nervous. You probably didn't stop being nervous until much later, right? If you waited until and practice driving until you're completely not nervous anymore, it would have taken you forever to get your license, okay? And you probably still are going to be nervous just by virtue of the fact that you're being tested, okay? Don't let that nervousness stand in the way of your performance. You want to try to practice not to get rid of the nervousness, but to make it so that you can perform even if you are nervous. A lot of times people mistake their stress or anxiety about performing as an inability to perform. And what all it really means is that you're nervous. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, okay? Take your practice test, okay? Make sure again that you've given yourself the same resources that you're going to have in real life. Give yourself the same amount of time. No notes if that's where the real test will be. Make sure that you have pencils and paper as needed. Give yourself the right amount of time, hopefully a quiet and undisturbed environment to take the test in. And then keep your consequence that you've given yourself in mind as you take your test, so that you can simulate that feeling of performing even with a bit of nervousness. Okay. Then once you're done, take a little break, definitely, and then grade your test. Be honest, grade what is actually on the paper, okay? Don't grade your intent, like, oh yeah, I meant to put a 4 there and I just didn't, okay? Grade what's actually on the paper, okay? I meant to put a minus sign, okay, it's fine. No, grade what is actually on the paper, okay? Grade as you think your instructor would. Okay, after you're all done, figure out the problems you missed. Figure out why you missed them. If you can't figure out what went wrong, why you got the wrong answer or whatever, get help from your instructor or the tutoring center or someone, a peer. Don't just let it go, okay? Try to figure out if your errors have common themes. Did you figure out that you left off the units on all the answers? You kept forgetting to write feet and square feet and meters and square meters and stuff. Or did you miss minus signs a whole lot? Okay, are you taking calculus and you forgot the plus C a whole bunch of times? Try to pay attention to any themes that your errors have. Take note of any times you didn't follow the directions. Did you forget to simplify fractions? Okay, I kept forgetting to label the intercepts on these lines that I graphed. Try to make sure that you pay attention to instances where you forgot to follow directions, okay? And then try to make sure you don't do that again. Okay, again, if you didn't meet your goal, make sure you follow through on that consequence. If you don't follow through on that consequence, then the next time you try to give yourself a consequence, it's not going to work. Okay, so make sure you follow through, as undesirable as it is. Okay. Other thoughts? After you take your real test, use it to evaluate your practice tests in your studying process. So you've gone through this activity of taking a practice test and grading it. When you take the real test, decide how much was the practice test helpful. Were you completely way off in the kinds of questions you chose? Do you think it helped you do better or not? If not, why not? And use that to help you evaluate the methods by which you are studying. Okay, again, in addition to learning how to do math, you're learning how to take a math class, and that's kind of two separate things. Okay, so make sure you use it to help evaluate your studying process. Save your practice tests for help in creating a practice final exam. So all these practice tests that you're taking, you can pick problems from those to create the final exam for the class that you're taking. You might want to, before you take the practice test, you may want to make copies of it. So if you decide to take the practice test a second or third time, probably you won't want to because you're going to memorize the answers. But if you decide to retake the test, make Xerox copies first, and that way you'll have a clean copy to work from. You might want to trade copies with your classmates. They might have thought of something you didn't, and plus then you're guaranteed probably to have picked questions that they didn't. One thing that would be interesting to see is if you happen to choose a lot of very similar looking questions, then that would kind of indicate that you and your classmate feel the same things are important in the class, and that's usually a good sign. Okay, another thought, your actual tests that you've taken, make good practice for the final. Make a clean copy first so that you can't see what you've done before. So take the test you have, then cut out pieces of paper or 3x5 cards and put them over the part where you wrote, or just rewrite the questions on clean paper, and then you can retake the tests as many times as you'd like. I know time is, of course, at a premium, so at the very least, you need to redo the questions that you missed when you originally took the test, but ideally, you should just retake the whole test. Okay, so I hope you found that helpful. Give it a try. Let me know if you think it was either helpful or really not helpful, and have a great day.